What up, Razzballers? Welcome back to another episode of the Razzball Fantasy Football Show. We got week 3 waiver ads and trade talk. We got some big injuries, unfortunately, to cover as well. Let's get into all of that right now on the Razzball Fantasy Football Show. What up, Razzballers? Welcome back to the program. I'm your host, Sky Guasco. You can find me on Twitter at Sky Guasco, SkyGuasco. Of course, you can find everything Razzball as well at Razzball Fantasy. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Instagram. You can find Bob on TikTok as well. You can find us anywhere. Also, of course, download the podcast anywhere you listen to your podcast. Those of you on the go, I'm constantly listening to my podcast because I'm on the move always. As you can see, another day, another background, right? So I'm always in motion. So I'm always listening to all of our content right here on YouTube, but also on the podcast. Make sure you download that wherever you're listening to your podcast at the Razzball Fantasy Football Show. And of course, hit the bell right here, subscribe to the YouTube channel, leave a comment below. Let us know your top waiver wire ads for this week. If you're having any issue with trade questions, you're having issues with top waiver wire priority, you're in a fab league, you're still new to fab, anything like that, leave a comment below and we'll be addressing that as soon as possible. Today, it's a rarity here on Razzball, but I am rolling solo. I'm on the road, so my time zones are a little bit different today. Me and Matt Stiles, unfortunately, could not connect. We both got things going on, so I'm going to take the lead for today, but we're going to review his episode, or his article, I should say, today. And of course, you can find his article, my article, and everybody's article at Razzball, razzball.com, football.razzball.com. All of our articles are for free right there. Of course, we have the slot versus wide tool. We have a start sit tool. We have so many opportunities for you for free. Utilize them on the website. And last but not least, before I get into this, catch us every single Sunday morning, 2 hours before kickoff, 8 a.m. Pacific time, 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. Eastern time. You can check us out for 2 different hours. And we got hundreds of questions last week. We got them the week before that. We have a number of rotating analysts coming on Razzball. You can check us out every single week on Sunday Live for your start sit tool. Make sure to come and check that out. All right, y'all, we got a lot to get into, and I'm going to try to make this one somewhat brief as I'm rolling solo today. Again, we're talking week 3 waiver ads and trade targets. Once again, you can jump into the chat here, and I will get to as many of these questions as I possibly can. Lindorphins is up. What's up, man? Good to hear from you. Thank you so much. Feel free to jump in and, of course, drop any comments you got here below. I am running the show by myself on the back end with any of your questions, so bear with me there if you do have any questions. But drop any trade opportunities down below. Let me know your settings. Of course, that helps a lot. But let's get into it. All right, waiver wire ads. I'm going to start right up at the top. Got to address Nick Chubb, unfortunately. Just a personal note, Nick Chubb is one of my favorite players on and off the field in the NFL. I've got his jersey from many years ago. Incredible team member, incredible teammate, does his job, stays out of the media. Nothing but great things to say about Nick Chubb, and just an absolutely brutal injury last night against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Monday Night Football. I'm not going to speculate. It's still early with reports. Looks like he is definitely done for this season, but I don't want to speculate. But, man, some of these things are longer than just a season, I'll put it that way, at his age, and just signed a big contract, last year. So hopefully he does come back. But Kareem Hunt, formerly on the Browns, is now revisiting. He is still a free agent. Leonard Fournette is still a free agent. There are some other opportunities out there. And, of course, they have Jerome Ford. Jerome Ford came in a big way last night, and, moving to a positive light best we can here, Jerome Ford came in and went gangbusters. 106 yards on 16 carries. Love that workload. Had another couple of receptions as well. And a 69-yard scamper down the sideline. Should have been 70 yards, and he should have scored. He was literally inches short of a 70-yard touchdown. He ended up getting it after the fact. They ran it in when he was getting a breather. But nonetheless, is explosive. A little bit faster than Nick Chubb, not as elusive maybe and big, obviously, but that Browns offensive line and that run scheme is fruitful for anybody. So, Matt, we're going to dive into his top priorities here this week, but my number one pickup this week is Jerome Ford. The Browns run the ball often. They had a rough game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, but they're going to be utilizing him, as we know, so go and check out him, absolutely. That is my pick of the week. Matt's pick of the week, Kyren Williams. Again, rightfully so, right? Coming in for the Rams, number 2 running back in fantasy football and PPR right now behind only the one and only Christian McCaffrey. He's getting the workload. 10 targets for running back is absolutely insane, right? So you'd love to see that from his work, and the Browns are for real, as we know from last week. Cam Akers is now on the trading block, so he is out of Los Angeles for the foreseeable future. Maybe, and right here, we have this down here. Jamie's popping in. Rather see Akers go to the Browns than Kareem Hunt. That's a possibility as well, right? Lindorfin's jumping in as well. Maybe Cam Akers gets traded. Absolutely a possibility. I don't want to speculate that kind of stuff yet. It's early in the week and yada, yada. But anything can happen with Cam Akers, Kareem Hunt, the Browns, and the Rams. Nonetheless, Jerome Ford is that guy right now. He proved it last night. And, of course, Kyren Williams there as well. So let's take a look at some of the other waiver wire ads for this week. And again, I'm just briefly blasting through what Matt has set up for us today since he wasn't able to make the program. But you can find his article and all of his statistics and his general breakdowns on football.rasball.com. Matt's article is up for free. Mine is dropping tomorrow morning. That is the trade targets article, which I'll get to at the second half of this episode. Okay, a couple more names here. Matthew Stafford for quarterback, picking up, right? 2 brutal games, right? Seattle Seahawks shocked the world. Almost got past my 49ers as well, right? Playing quite well, and it goes without saying, Puka Nacua is the truth, right? He's not Cooper Kupp. Nobody's Cooper Kupp, but he's getting Cooper Kupp looks and workload, right? Set a record for a number of targets in the first 2 games of a career ever. Number of receptions, 15 receptions is absolutely insane for anybody, let alone a rookie coming out as a, third, fourth stringer starting the season. So Puka's definitely legit. Matthew Stafford could be that number 1 quarterback if you need to pick him up in single quarterback leagues. Derek Carr also played quite well. Had a little bit of a hiccup last night, but he had some nice throws against Carolina Panthers. So Derek Carr of the New Orleans Saints coming up. I do like Matt Stafford maybe a little bit more, right? Going up against the Bengals on Monday night. Derek Carr has the Packers. I don't love that matchup as much on the road. We know that Derek Carr outside and in colder weather is not always the most productive. He is, of course, now on a dome team. So I do like Matt Stafford a bit better against that struggling Bengals team in general, who's now 0-2 somehow. But I like Matt Stafford, Derek Carr. Also, if you're looking at 2 QB leagues or super flex, you might have a name on the waiver wire, which won't be Derek Carr, Matt Stafford, but CJ Stroud of the Houston Texans might be available. So take a look for him as well. A couple more running backs here. We talked about Jerome Ford and Kyren Williams. Those are our 1 and 2, no matter how you slice it. I would be willing to spend, yikes, with this stuff coming out by Kareem Hunt, I don't want to spend all my fab and then have Kareem Hunt show up or Cam Akers. But as per this episode, before anything happens, if I need to make waivers tonight, which most of you are doing, I'm putting at least 60% on Jerome Ford. And if Kyren Williams is available, I'm selling the bag. I need him on my team right now. That's the truth. And there's no one behind him as of right now. So I do like Jerome Ford and Kyren Williams. I'm spending at least 60%, right? Very rarely do you get a bell cow running back, and there's 2 maybe available right now. So I'm selling the bag 60% at least for both of those guys. Jaylen Warren, much more explosive right now than Najee Harris. Najee had a couple mean runs late in that game to ice it for the Steelers, so he played very well. Obviously, a nice cutback run, showed some speed. Obviously, he's very powerful, but Jaylen Warren is just a different athleticism. Using him in the pass game, I like that a lot. Jaylen Warren, I'll take maybe, 15, 20% because he is still a backup, but I want him on the team just in case. Zack Moss, I wanted to hate on it. It's working out. Nobody else there in Indy is able to step up yet without Jonathan Taylor. Zack Moss, I only spent about 10 or 15% of my fab, though, because Jonathan Taylor will be returning most likely in the next couple of weeks. So don't go too crazy, but he might be an option there. And Matt Breida, also with Saquon Barkley going down with a high ankle sprain, or a normal ankle sprain, if you will, but he had an ankle sprain a couple of years ago that sidelined him for quite a while, plus the ACL. Saquon's very tough. It should be back eventually this year, but I don't know when. So Matt Breida, again, veteran, mainly a backup, so maybe 5% of your fab, but a decent backup if you need to start streaming running backs. But we're not at bias yet, so hopefully you're okay there. So Jerome Ford, Kyren Williams, Jaylen Warren, Zack Moss, and Matt Breida. Wide receivers looking to pick up my man Josh Reynolds. I love this. Shouts out to my boy Daniel. Those of you that have been with me from the TCK days. Daniel was my original co-host about 6 years ago. We love Josh Reynolds coming out of Texas A&M, and never really got to fruition outside of a couple games with the Rams. But here we are 2 weeks in. Josh Reynolds has the most production in Detroit, not Amon-Ra St. Brown. And Amon-Ra St. Brown came up with some turf toe. he might be injured for a couple of weeks or at least not 100%. Josh Reynolds is the truth, and he's getting the work. And let's not forget, Jared Goff and Josh Reynolds were together with the Rams. Now they're with the Detroit Lions. So they have the rapport. We always talk about continuity. That's very important. Go look at Josh Reynolds right now. And if you're looking for a wide receiver, I'm okay with about 15%. Again, nothing crazy, but Amon-Ra is not healthy. And Sam Laporta and Josh Reynolds are basically those top two dogs there. David Montgomery is now injured as well. So Jahmyr Gibbs won't be available on waivers, obviously. But it's him, Josh Reynolds, and Sam Laporta in that offense. So go get some of that Detroit offense. Tank Dell for the Houston Texans, right? Rookie comes out, not looking for crazy money, but just keep an eye on him. And if he's maybe a free waivers pass, go pick him up for free. Jaylen Reed, right? The unknown about Christian Watson here. Romeo Doubs is clearly the number one right now, but Jaylen Reed's got big play potential as well, so keep an eye on him. Nelson Agholor, an old name for the Baltimore Ravens with Dell going down, and then TuTu Atwell also with the Rams. Clearly it's Puka Nacua, but we saw in week one, TuTu Atwell also had a lot of work, so keep an eye on those guys that maybe you don't have to spend much on fab. Maybe it passes through and you get it for free, but those are names I am looking at. So once again, quick waiver pickups for this week. Matt Stafford, Derek Carr, CJ Stroud at quarterback. Jerome Ford, Kyren Williams are 1 and 2 at running back with Jaylen Warren, Zack Moss, and Matt Breida. Also, we have Josh Reynolds, Tank Dell, Jaylen Reed, Nelson Agholor, and TuTu Atwell. If I'm looking for a player right now at quarterback position, it's Matt Stafford. At running back, it's going to be Kyren Williams if available. If not, then Jerome Ford. And at wide receiver, it's Josh Reynolds. If I'm looking season long and I need to fix one of these guys, I actually like Derek Carr over Matt Stafford. And I'm going to take Kyren Williams again if available, and obviously Jerome Ford. Maybe even Kareem Hunt, if he's available, just pick him up because it looks like teams are still looking into him no matter what if you have a free square. And then I actually like Jaylen Reed long-term, and of course Josh Reynolds if you need him, but Amon-Ra should be okay long-term as we get going. Let me get to some of these comments here, and then I will dive into the rest of my trade talk again. Sky Guasco, the Razzball Fantasy Football Show, rolling solo today. You can catch me on Twitter. Make sure to give a follow if you haven't already. SkyGuasco. Find my trade article, drops every single Wednesday morning on football.razzball.com for free. And Matt Stiles' article, you can find him on Twitter at Stiles08. You can find his article every Tuesday morning, recapping the waiver ads. And then generally he and I are sharing that, but he and I were unable to connect today, so I'm rolling solo. All right, let's get me to a couple of these here. Lindorfin's jumping in for context, a 12-team league where options are Matt Breida, Chandler, Spears, Tucker. Right, so any of these options out here, like, Matt Breida, Chandler, again, all these guys are backups, but you never know. Tucker looks really good in Tampa, and I just don't really believe in their whole situation down there. Spears is obviously a distant behind Derrick Henry, but if anything happens there, that's a great fill. Chandler might get more work this week. Alexander Mattison just hasn't been it. However, there have been two brutal matchups for the Vikings. So Alexander Mattison might have a little bit more work this week. And Matt Breida, again, lifetime backup. He was with my Niners for a couple of years. He definitely has that burst. But, with Saquon out, but again, they could bring anybody in. Leonard Fournette's still floating out around there. One of these guys could get traded, so don't go too crazy, but could be an option there. Jamie jumping back in, and honestly rather have the Bears pick up Dwayne McBride, type running back and roll out Ford for most of the staff. So again, there is a chance. We see this all the time. We get excited about waiver pickup. Deion Jackson was that guy week one, right? Just kind of a dud. They went to Zack Moss. So there's a chance that Jerome Ford just isn't the number one guy for the Browns. He looked great, so I can't imagine they don't give him at least this next week. But if they don't, then they could bring somebody else in. So try not to go too crazy with the fab. But if you need to make a move, you lost J.K. Dobbins or Saquon or Chubb himself, you need to make a move. And you have Alvin Kamara and Jonathan Taylor, you're 0-2 and you can't wait it out. You got to take a stab, and hopefully it works out on that end. Lindorfin's last question here. Make it more specific. Would you drop Akers for Ford half PPR if it matters? 100%. I absolutely would drop Cam Akers. Here's the deal. Right now, he's unemployed. Okay. Jerome Ford has a job, looked great, should get the work next week. Now, if you have any type of IR spot, obviously, you know the stuff, right? If you can wiggle him out, maybe drop a kicker, save him through the week and see if anyone gets saved, and then pick up another kicker later, a DST or something like that, just to keep an open space on your roster. That's how I would do it if possible. But if not, then absolutely I would drop Cam Akers for Jerome Ford. But keep an eye on Akers because he might either land somewhere else sometime soon, right? Or maybe Kareem Hunt comes in and Ford doesn't have a move. But either way, I like the odds of Ford having a better opportunity there. Okay, let's get into the trade talk here. So my trade article has all of my information. I've got 1,400 characters or something like that, 1,400 words, lots of numbers, lots of analysis. Y'all know how I get down. So I'm going to save a lot of that talk for this episode, but I will give you the names, a couple sentences, and go check out my article tomorrow morning, every single Wednesday morning for free on football.rasball.com. Okay, trading for and trading away. 4 players to trade for, 4 players to trade away, 1 at each position. Let's ride. Trade for Kirk Cousins. That's right, folks. Kirk Cousins, probably not even drafted in most 12-team leagues, the number 1 quarterback in fantasy football right now. Absolutely on fire. To make this even better, I don't think it goes away because, A, Kirk Cousins is not that bad of a quarterback. He's just lame and people don't buy into it. I get it. He's playing out of his mind right now. Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison are immediately coming a top 3 duo in the NFL, plus TJ Hawkinson. So it's arguably the best trio in the NFL because George Kittle is not really that guy in the passing game right now for the 49ers. So best trio in the NFL, it's got to be, in my opinion, the Vikings right now. Plus they have KJ Osborne. They have Madison out of the background, maybe Chandler as well. They have a lot of options in Minnesota. Also, they have a horrible defense, second worst defense in the NFL so far this year. The Vikings can't play defense. They're going to be playing catch up. They're 0-2 somehow. They're going to be throwing the ball a lot. Kirk Cousins is somebody I want on my team. Honestly, this sounds disgusting, but I would rather have Kirk Cousins than Joe Burrow. I'll get into that in just a second. Kyren Williams, I mentioned him earlier in the waivers. If he's on waivers, obviously go get him. If he's not on waivers, try to float out a trade. The hype is really high right now. However, right, Cam Akers might have another opportunity. They might bring someone else in like Kareem Hunter or Leonard Fournette. Also, he did have 10 targets in PPR, which helped a lot. He was number 2 running back last week, number 2 on the season. But week 1, he just scored 2 touchdowns that helped tremendously. So it's worked out in his favor so far, and I think he's the truth. But if you don't, you might be able to make a case that maybe, it's something that somebody can move off of. But Kyren Williams is somebody I want on my team, especially if you've lost one of these running backs or you're waiting for Alvin Kamara and Jonathan Taylor. Wide receiver, Christian Kirk. Week 1, it was Calvin Ridley, rightfully so. Week 2, NFL figured it out. They adapt quickly. Then it became Christian Kirk as the number 1 because Calvin Ridley was getting double coverage. I think now that Calvin Ridley went off in week 1, Christian Kirk went off in week 2, you still have to count for the running backs. I think that eventually the Jags are going to create, pick your poison. So if they go double coverage on somebody, the other person's going to get those targets. And Trevor Lawrence now is adapting well, obviously, in year 3. I think he's going to be just fine, just sitting back there looking at read 1, double covered, go to read 2, boom. Evan Ingram's also out there as well to divert energy. So I really like Christian Kirk coming up, and he's one of the cheaper, I think, high-level wide receiver 2s. Dud in week 1, stud in week 2. Ridley was the other way around. I think they even each other out moving forward. So Christian Kirk is a cheap wide receiver 2 that I think you can acquire. And then, believe it or not, tight end, Zach Ertz. I know it's crazy, but he leads all tight ends in 2 weeks. I know it's just 2 weeks, but he leads all tight ends in 2 weeks in targets and receptions among tight ends. The Cardinals have nobody else. Hollywood Brown isn't it, and he gets all the attention because he's the only other wide receiver. James Conner isn't really the run game right now, right? And they're constantly behind. So they are throwing the ball often. It doesn't take much for tight ends to have a nice line. 5 for 50 is fine, and if they score a touchdown, they're top 5. Zach Ertz, wily vet, making it happen. Healthy right now, reliable. Go look at trading for Zach Ertz. So again, trading for Kirk Cousins, Kyren Williams, Christian Kirk, and Zach Ertz. All of my analysis, deep dive, lots of numbers, all the explanations in my article, rasball.football.com. Endorphins, always appreciate you. Thanks so much for chiming in. I really do appreciate the interactivity. It keeps me on my toes. All right, and then I'll finish it off here with some trade away targets. I just mentioned Joe Burrow, and I absolutely hate this. I really do. Obviously, Joe Burrow's a stud. Don't give him away. Y'all know the drill, right? Don't hear what I'm not saying. But unfortunately, the Bengals are not the Bengals, right? Jamar Chase is struggling. Joe Burrow's hurt. That calf that was a concern a month before the season healed enough for him to get clearance to play, but he got beat up in week 1 by the Browns, got beat up in week 2 by the Ravens. They're 0-2 in the division, and the offense just doesn't look right, okay? Joe Burrow is somebody I'll be looking to sell high on because of name brand and the potential. Look, can Joe Burrow be a top 10 quarterback the rest of the season? Yeah, probably. Will he, though? I don't know. And he has kind of a brutal schedule coming up as well, right? I also mentioned in my article, but I'll briefly mention they have a bye week coming up in week 7, 8. They could kind of just run, try to gather a couple of wins, let him heal up, if you will, maybe even bench him a game or two, or just play it easy to get to that bye week because the second half of the Bengals schedule is one of the most difficult in the NFL. Okay. I'm worried about that. So Joe Burrow is someone I'm trying to offload right now if I can and look up. And I just told you I'd rather have Kirk Cousins than Joe Burrow in fantasy. And I'm absolutely serious about that. So that's a move that I would go make. And I think that you absolutely can. Raheem Mostert is my running back to trade away. Y'all know I love my boy Heem, longtime 49er. I root for him all the time. But he had a massive game last week because why? Bill Belichick takes away that number one option. That's Tyreek Hill. Then it's Jaylen Waddle. The Patriots did a great job blanketing them and slowing them down for Dolphins purposes. From there, unfortunately, they slowed down. He always controls Tua. But then what does that mean? You can run the ball more. So Heem had a wonderful long run, right? 40-plus yard touchdown. But he also got the carries. That didn't happen in week 1. Okay. He had 12 total touches in week 1. That's probably going to be more like it. They're going to run and gun as much as possible, throwing the ball. So sell high on Raheem Mostert. That's what I would absolutely do. He's in a high-powered offense. He's getting the touches. He's healthy right now, but he's not always healthy. And you can't guarantee that he's going to get that work. So I would sell high on Raheem Mostert. Wide receiver, this one hurts, but I feel good about this. Sell high on name brand and potential and go up. Okay. AJ Brown. AJ Brown is the sell high candidate for me right now. He is the number one in Philly, but he's not statistically right now. Devonta Smith is the number one. They have the same amount of targets, similar yardage, 2 touchdowns. The difference is that coverage we're talking about with Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk, that goes to AJ Brown, not Devonta Smith. So Hurts looks at Brown, covered, goes right to Smith. And Smith is, bona fide number one in his own. He's kind of like, he's T. Higgins to Jamar Chase, if you will. So he's totally fine being a number one and taking that workload, and he absolutely has been. So right now, AJ Brown is somebody that I would sell. Now, again, could he be top 10, 15 the rest of the year? Yeah, probably. But will he? I don't know. And for me, I want to go up, right? I want to sell up. So maybe like Stephon Diggs or even Jamar Chase, who's struggling right now. I'd rather kind of use those lumps, wait for them to get healthy and work through it that way. Or maybe you could package deal, go get somebody like, Calvin Ridley plus a piece or something like that. So just think outside the box. Obviously, don't give these guys away, but just some names to consider because I don't love their situation currently. And finally, Kyle Pitts. I get it. Athleticism, blah, blah, blah. I'm tired of that as the only narrative, right? Desmond Ridder has thrown for the 3rd fewest pass attempts in the NFL in 2 weeks. Those pass attempts are going to Bijan Robinson and they're going to Drake London. They're not going to Kyle Pitts. So he's just not getting the work. It's absolutely dreadful. I know I'm sad about it too, but we have to cut bait. Fantasy football is about adapting. If you don't adapt, you get left behind. Kyle Pitts, we had all the potential, not there. Watch a couple games, still not there. He's not even getting the work. I'm concerned selling Kyle Pitts. Again, name brand and potential. Don't like that. All right, Lindolphins, let me get to your last question. I'll get out of here. DST questions are my favorite. Actually, don't mind the DST. I respect the DST. I appreciate you bringing that up here. Would you prefer KC against Chicago or Philly versus Tampa Bay? Philly versus Tampa Bay. KC's been playing quite well, and I don't trust Justin Fields, but Philadelphia is absolutely dominant. And Baker's been on a hot streak. I get he's talking smack. They're 2-0, whatever. They're not going to be able to run the ball at all. Like just straight up, the Bucs are not going to run the ball on the Philadelphia Eagles. Therefore, Baker is going to have to win that game or move the ball. And I think he's going to be in pressure situations. I think they can shut down Mike Evans and Chris Godwin for the most part. So I'm going to go Philly over Tampa Bay in that particular instance. Okay, folks, just a reminder here. Again, the trade for and trade against. Trade for Kirk Cousins, Kyren Cousins, Kyren Williams, Christian Kirk, and Zach Ertz. Trade away Joe Burrow, Raheem Mostert, AJ Brown, and Kyle Pitts. That's all I got for you today. Nice and quick for you. Matty Stiles and I will be back next week, and we'll be dropping some more knowledge for you. But in the meantime, please make sure to hit the button here, subscribe. Let us know your favorite waiver odds. And you just saw Jamie and Lindorphins jumping in here. I get to all the questions. We're 100% on those. Also, on our comments on the website, make sure to think it out. Like, give us your roster. What kind of trade article you're looking, or what kind of trade you are fielding in your league. If you have any waiver pickups, maybe you're looking ahead a week or two and you want to get like a streaming DST, a quarterback, a tight end, something like that, feel free to reach out to us. We're 100% on our replies to articles. So please jump down there and let us know. Also, of course, you can listen to the podcast anywhere you listen to the Basketball Fantasy Football Show on the go. So I appreciate the download there. Leave us a rate and review as well. We appreciate it. YouTube and everything, RazballFantasy.com. Find me on Twitter at Guasco, SkyGuasco. You can find Matt Stiles at Stiles08, and all of our articles, again, for me and Matt and the rest of our team on football.razball.com. Appreciate y'all. It's a lot for me to get out in this short time, so sorry about my stumbling today, but catch you next time. Best of luck for the rest of the week, and hopefully you all are 2-0, and if you're 1-1 or 0-2, we're going to get you popping. But let's get to that 3-0. I will see you Sunday morning, 2 hours before kickoff. I'll catch you then, and we will get into our start sit question right here on YouTube. So we'll catch you then. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your evening. I am out of here.